The year is 1612. The place is the small island of Funajima, off the coast of Higo Province in southern Japan. A rowboat cuts through the grey morning water. In it sits a young man of 28 years. His name is Miyamoto Musashi. He is dirty, unkempt, and dressed in ragged clothes. His hair is tangled. He has not shaved in days. He carries no sword, at least no katana. Instead, he carries a wooden sword, a bokken, carved from a boat oar on the journey over. His opponent is already waiting on the island. His name is Sasaki Kojiro. He is 37 years old. At the height of his power, he is the official sword instructor to the lord of the domain. He wears fine silk. His hair is perfectly tied. His sword, the drying pole, a nodachi over 3 feet long, is the most famous blade in Japan. Kojiro has never lost a duel. He has killed dozens of opponents. He is known for his swallow's tail technique, a lightning-fast downward cut so quick that it is said to cut a swallow in mid-flight. The entire island has gathered to watch. Samurai, nobles, officials, and commoners line the shore. They expect a great battle, a clash of masters, a display of technique, a duel for the ages. They expect Musashi to die. He is younger, less experienced, less respected. He fights with a wooden sword against a steel blade. He has no chance, but Musashi has something that Kojiro does not. He has a plan. Not a technique, not a secret sword stroke, a plan. A plan that begins before the duel, continues during the duel, and ends in a single devastating strike. The rowboat approaches the island. Musashi steps onto the sand. Kojiro stands 30 yards away, his long sword already drawn. He sees Musashi's wooden sword. He laughs. "You come to die with a toy?" Musashi says nothing. He walks forward slowly, his eyes never leaving Kojiro's throat. Kojiro raises his sword. The crowd holds its breath. Then Musashi speaks. He says, "You have already lost." Kojiro hesitates for a fraction of a second. That hesitation is the opening Musashi needs. He leaps forward. His wooden sword cuts through the air. Kojiro swings his long blade in the swallow's tail. The two strikes meet, but Musashi's blow is a fraction faster. His wooden sword crashes down on Kojiro's skull. Kojiro falls. He dies in the sand. The entire duel has lasted less than a minute. One strike, one winner. Miyamoto Musashi, the ragged ronin with the boat oar, has killed the most famous swordsman in Japan. He will never lose again. He will go on to fight 60 duels, win every one, and write the most famous book on strategy ever written, the Book of 5 Rings. But the duel of 1612, the duel that made him a legend, is the one we remember. Today we are going inside that duel. We will understand not just what happened, but why. We will learn the mind of Miyamoto Musashi, the strategist, the philosopher, the warrior who proved that victory begins long before the first strike. By the time we finish, you will see why Musashi is still studied by businessmen, soldiers, and martial artists around the world. One strike, one winner, and a legend that will never die. To understand the duel of 1612, you must first understand the two men. Miyamoto Musashi was born in 1584 in the village of Miyamoto in Higo Province. His father was a skilled swordsman and martial artist. His mother died when he was young. He was raised by his stepmother and his father's brutal training. Musashi fought his first duel at age 13. His opponent was a samurai named Arima Kihei, a master of the Shinto Ryu school. Musashi threw him to the ground and beat him to death with a wooden staff. At age 16, he fought in the Battle of Sekigahara, the decisive conflict that established the Tokugawa shogunate. He fought on the losing side. He survived. He became a ronin, a masterless samurai. For the next 12 years, he wandered Japan, challenging the masters of every sword school he could find. He developed his own style, the Nitin Ichi-ryu, the school of two heavens. It was a style that used two swords simultaneously, a katana and a wakizashi. It was unorthodox, it was aggressive, it was devastating. By 1612, Musashi had fought over 30 duels. He had never lost, but he was still unknown compared to Sasaki Kojiro. Kojiro was everything Musashi was not. He was polished, refined, and aristocratic. He had studied under the great master Toda Seijin. He had developed the swallow's tail technique, a descending cut so fast that it seemed to come from nowhere. He was the sword instructor to the Hosokawa clan, one of the most powerful families in Japan. He had a reputation, a salary, and a future. Musashi had nothing but his skill and his will. The duel was arranged by the Hosokawa clan. Kojiro had requested it. He wanted to defeat this upstart ronin who claimed to be the greatest swordsman in Japan. Musashi accepted. He always accepted. The duel was set for dawn on April 13th, 1612, on Funajima Island. Musashi arrived late. He had been staying with a friend on the mainland. He woke up late, ate a leisurely breakfast, and only then rowed across. The delay was intentional. Kojiro had been waiting for hours. He was impatient. He was angry. His concentration was broken. Musashi had already won the first psychological battle. On the rowboat, Musashi carved a wooden sword from a spare oar. He made it longer than a standard bokken, about 4 feet long, longer than Kojiro's nodachi. He knew that Kojiro's advantage was his long blade. Musashi's wooden sword would negate that advantage. The duel itself lasted seconds. The most famous account from Musashi's own Book of 5 Rings describes it simply, "I struck him once. He fell. I did not strike again." Other accounts are more detailed. They say that Musashi stepped onto the island, saw Kojiro's stance, and said, "You have already lost." Kojiro, distracted by the words, attacked a fraction too late. Musashi stepped inside the arc of Kojiro's long sword, the one place where the long blade could not cut. He brought his wooden sword down on Kojiro's head. Kojiro collapsed. Musashi bowed to his opponent's body, returned to his rowboat, and left. He never spoke of the duel again, but the story spread. Within a year, Miyamoto Musashi was the most famous swordsman in Japan. He would go on to fight 30 more duels, including a duel against the entire Yoshioka school, where he killed the master, then the master's son, then the master's younger son, who brought dozens of students to ambush him. Musashi killed the younger son and escaped. He fought with a wooden sword against steel. He fought with 2 swords against 1. He fought with strategy, psychology, and overwhelming aggression. He never lost. But the duel of 1612 is not famous because of the violence. It is famous because of the philosophy. Musashi understood that combat is not just physical. It is mental, spiritual, and strategic. He understood that victory is determined before the first strike. The late arrival, the wooden sword, the insulting words, these were not tricks. They were tactics. They were part of a holistic approach to combat that Musashi called strategy. In the Book of Five Rings, written decades later, Musashi laid out his principles. He taught that the warrior must be like water, formless, adaptable, able to flow into any gap. He taught that the warrior must study not just the sword, but all arts: calligraphy, painting, sculpture, tea ceremony, because the same principles of timing, spacing, and rhythm apply to everything. He taught that the warrior must be detached from the outcome, not caring whether he lives or dies, only caring that he executes the correct technique at the correct moment. That detachment, Musashi believed, was the source of true power. If you fear death, you will hesitate. If you hesitate, you will die. Therefore, do not fear death. This is not nihilism. It is practical psychology. Musashi also taught that the warrior must know his enemy. He studied Kojiro before the duel. He knew Kojiro's technique, his temperament, his habits. He knew that Kojiro was proud, impatient, and easily provoked. He used that knowledge. He arrived late to make Kojiro angry. He spoke to make Kojiro hesitate. He used a wooden sword to make Kojiro underestimate him. By the time Kojiro swung his blade, he had already lost. He just did not know it yet. After the duel, Musashi continued to wander. He fought more duels, he studied Zen Buddhism, he painted extraordinary ink-wash landscapes, delicate, minimal, profound. He wrote the Book of Five Rings in 1645, just before his death. The book is not a manual of sword techniques. It is a manual of strategy, applicable to business, to politics, to life. It has been read by executives, generals, and athletes for 4 centuries. Musashi died on June 13, 1645, probably of stomach cancer. He was 61 years old. He died in a cave, sitting in the lotus position, a sword at his side. He left instructions that he be buried in his armor. He wanted to face the afterlife as a warrior. His grave is in Kumamoto, on the island of Kyushu. It is a simple stone, unadorned. But the legend of Musashi is not simple. It is the legend of a man who took a boat oar and killed the greatest swordsman in Japan. It is the legend of a man who never lost. It is the legend of a man who proved that strategy is more important than strength, that psychology is more important than technique, and that the battle is won before the first blow is struck. So what can we learn from Miyamoto Musashi? First, that preparation is invisible. The duel of 1612 looked like a single strike, but it was the product of years of training, study, and psychological warfare. The strike was the last step. Everything before it was the real battle. Second, that adaptability is the highest skill. Musashi did not fight with a katana. He fought with a boat oar. He did not fight with one sword. He fought with 2. He did not follow any school. He created his own. He adapted to every opponent, every situation, every weapon. That adaptability made him unbeatable. Third, that detachment is power. Musashi did not care if he lived or died. He had no family, no lord, no possessions. He had nothing to lose. That freedom allowed him to take risks that a man with a reputation, a salary, and a future could not take. Kojiro had everything to lose. He lost it. Fourth, that the greatest opponent is yourself. Musashi did not spend his life comparing himself to others. He spent his life perfecting himself. He studied, practiced, and refined every day. He never rested on his reputation. He never stopped learning. That is why he was the greatest. Fifth, that a legend is not made by a single moment. The Duel of 1612 made Musashi famous, but it was the 60 duels before and after that made him a legend. The famous moment is the tip of the iceberg. The rest is hidden beneath the water. Do not chase the moment, chase the practice. The moment will come. So, what can we learn from Miyamoto Musashi? First, that preparation is invisible. The Duel of 1612 looked like a single strike, but it was the product of years of training, study, and psychological warfare. The strike was the last step. Everything before it was the real battle. Second, that adaptability is the highest skill. Musashi did not fight with a katana. He fought with a boat oar. He did not fight with one sword. He fought with two. He did not follow any school. He created his own. He adapted to every opponent, every situation, every weapon. That adaptability made him unbeatable. Third, that detachment is power. Musashi did not care if he lived or died. He had no family, no lord, no possessions. He had nothing to lose. That freedom allowed him to take risks that a man with a reputation, a salary, and a future could not take. Kojiro had everything to lose. He lost it. Fourth, that the greatest opponent is yourself. Musashi did not spend his life comparing himself to others. He spent his life perfecting himself. He studied, practiced, and refined every day. He never rested on his reputation. He never stopped learning. That is why he was the greatest. Fifth, that a legend is not made by a single moment. The Duel of 1612 made Musashi famous, but it was the 60 duels before and after that made him a legend. The famous moment is the tip of the iceberg. The rest is hidden beneath the water. Do not chase the moment. Chase the practice. The moment will come.